Smooth Operators, your host, Robert Evers and Michael Brooks. Please stay tuned for a good episode. Peace.
Man,
What's up?
I love how you just come out right out the bat and say this is going to be a good episode.
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
I had to go in a little bit of cognito. Apparently, not all Las Vegas Metropolitan Police have sense of humor on New Year's. So
they don't.
I'm kind of hidden in the underground.
You didn't get on TV, did you?
No, man, it was peaceful. Exactly where I should be, right in the studio. There was no shenanigans on my end.
Lord.
Just right in the studio. So what's up, brother? How's it going?
Doing good, man. Getting ready for tomorrow. Going back to work, and it's supposed to rain tomorrow right here where I live at, so I'll probably end up doing paperwork.
Well, I'm telling you, man, that's one of the great things about Las Vegas is there's no rain whatsoever, man. It's just literally everything is just hot and dry, and that's it. So I rarely have to be concerned about rain, and when it does come, it's just gone like that. So, but in Dallas, I have to explain to people all the time. Dallas, man, I'm looking at the schedule every morning, and just to try to figure out whether we're going to have rain, because it doesn't come in and out. It sticks around for a few hours, and it could easily ruin half your morning. So,
I got 3 new installs to do this week on my residential gates, so I'm ready to get them 3 done this week.
Yeah, we were talking about that last time. You're going you've got a new program where you've got some LA500 or LA400 set up.
400s.
And what was the deal with the 500? Have you installed any of those, and was it just something else?
I've installed a couple of those. I like them. I didn't have no issue with them so far. I got one of them that's on a 20-foot single gate. Haven't got a call back yet, and it's been about 8 months.
What type of material was the gate on?
4-foot high, 20-foot wide chain link gate.
Dang, 20-foot wide. You maxing that out. Don't tell them that, man. You might void the warranty by about 2 feet.
Oh, they're going to warranty it. Don't worry about that.
Well, the good news is you got the lightest gate that there is out there. 4 foot, 25. I mean, it's what would you say that is? 150 pounds? Maybe
150. 200. I was just say 200. I don't know, around there.
So
it's still a heavy gate.
Other than it moving a little quick, I mean, that's fine.
I'm going to tell you what. It moved smooth. I was shocked how smooth it moved. It didn't do no rocking back and forth. It went smooth. I was pretty surprised. I don't know what it's doing now though, so I ain't gonna say nothing too much.
Well, I think it's time for us to do a live from the field. The LA500. Trust me, your customer would definitely tell you if there was some of the things that I've seen out there. I recently put a couple of posts about LA500s on Two Smooth Operators YouTube channel. Did you see that?
I did see it, but I was so busy I didn't tag on to it.
There was 2 of them. There was one about the weight of the gate, and then one about just the opinion on putting it on a metal frame wood board on board gate to see what they thought. And the overriding consensus was as long as you put a mag lock on it, you're good to go.
Yeah, I recommend putting some type of mag lock or lock on any single gate with the actuator arm.
Are you well, that's one of the things we're going to talk about USAutomatic today, as well as what we were doing in the field and some training stuff that we got going on. That's one of the things I liked about that Patriot arm. The way that it's designed is you could put a catch on the latch post, and you could actually put a little bit of pressure on the latch or the catch, if you will, and that would keep that thing closed. Now, of course, you want to get the actuator arm welded to the top, middle, or some horizontal member of the frame, but But yeah, or on the bottom. I mean, you can kind of get away with it on the bottom, but it's a little bit close. That's another thing about LA 500s. Did you know that they don't recommend putting those below 12 inches?
Yeah, you mean like putting the
Actuator arm.
actuator arm below 12 inches? Like, we explain that to me. Below 12 inches.
So the bottom of the LA 500 actuator arm, if you remember it, it's actually got two huge slots down the side, and that's what that
Yeah.
U-bolt goes down those slots. So the only thing that I could come up with is, as opposed to like an LA 400 or a Patriot, or I'm thinking of another one right now, I can't remember, where the design, a Ranger HD, where the design is, if you will, locked or solid tube. There's no way for water to hit the ground and bounce back up. So that's the only thing
Oh
that
yeah,
I
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it could be, for all I know, it could be a leverage situation. But
Well, they're not designed to go at the bottom of a gate. Is that what you're trying to say?
yeah, that the
Mhm.
LA 500 is not designed, or not, whether it's
Yeah.
designed to or not. It's just not in the factory. It says don't install them below 12 inches.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Um, because the bottom of it's open, you know. So where
But
you're
you were about to
where,
say they're not designed to go on the bottom. Why is that?
because normally it goes to in the center of the gate. That's where
Okay.
your best scenario is. But you can put them up high. You can put them. I got them down low too. But um,
You're just talking about from a leverage standpoint
yeah,
as
from a
opposed to,
leverage standpoint. But it
okay.
don't really matter.
Yeah, if you could hit the
Yeah.
center of that bar, that's even better. So what happened in the field today, or this week rather?
Well, the only thing I did was I bidded on some jobs, looked at some jobs, and looked at another wrought iron gate. I'm gonna put LA 400 on it. Gonna put
Custom?
well, the gates are there, but I got to take the gates down and extend the hinges out because whoever put the gate up didn't put enough space in between the gate and the post where it can't open up all the way. It hits dink, and it can't open up past not even 90 degrees. So to put your LA 400 on, you got to get it where it can open up past 90 degrees. So
Oh,
I got
yeah.
to
Well,
take
yeah.
the hinges off and put spacers on them and weld it back on to the post.
I know we're live and everything, but just double check that your microphone or whatever is not moving around. I keep hearing a couple of little beeps. It actually sounds more like an artifact, like a digital artifact, as opposed to like something actually hitting it. But yeah, I that people don't understand that the hinges are keyed was the word I was about to say, but yeah, the hinges are, in some of these barrel hinges, not some of them, the majority of barrel hinges, you can't just throw them out there on the edge of one side of the hinge post without being aware whether it's pushing it open or pulling it to open. So you got to pay attention to that. So what they do, put it right in the center?
They got your hinges in the center, but when you do that, you're supposed to space them out a little bit. So, and what's happening is it's hitting the cap on the post and hitting the cap on the gate, and it won't swing past 90 at all.
So
And if
this
you
is,
throw a gate operator on there, you're gonna have troubles. It ain't gonna open up all the way. So you got to
so
take the gate down and extend them.
are you just going to put some flat, just a 1/4 inch flat or something on there?
Yeah, just enough to get that top cat the clear where I can get past 90 degrees. If I get 120, I'm good. So I know because what's so important about that is you don't get an obstruction on it when the gates open up. Because there's going to be a little play sometimes when they open up. They'll move back and forth when they fully open, and that can cause an obstruction.
Yeah. Ray Andrews has got a quick question while we're talking about before we jump in. Ray, we don't want to miss this question, so
What's up, Ray?
we'll go ahead and answer it right now. But yeah, I see what you're saying. If you've got post caps on top of the hinge post as well as the gate, you just now have lost a half an inch, depending upon the caps.
Yeah.
But I got you. So they very well could have put the hinges in the right spot as far as on the leading edge of whatever side of the post, but with those caps on there. Yeah, I don't see too many caps on the actual gate out here, but I guess if it's a custom iron design. So Ray, what's that?
Go ahead.
I was going to say,
what I was saying, it's a normal standard to put a spacer on your welded hinges for wrought iron.
Are these 5 inches or 7 inches?
5 inches. They're small.
5 inches. Okay, so yeah, no, Brian chiming in over here, making fun of my hat.
Yeah. Well, let's answer that question for Ray Andrews.
Let's go back. Says cantilever gate operator on a slope grade change. What's your professional opinion?
Is there a professional opinion on that?
Well, I mean, there's some guy in a classroom right now going, no, you can't do that. There's no way. Oh yeah, well, and then the question should be, well, how many gates did you install in the last decade? And if the answer is 0, then they don't understand what the actual practical installation is going out there. So what's your opinion on a cantilever gate being installed on a slope?
Well, Ray Andrews, you can take some dice and shake them up real good and throw them at the operator. No, that's my advice to you on that. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, it is a gamble. Because you got to make sure you got to have the right operator there strong enough to handle the load and the slope. It just depends. I put them on jobs on mountains before where the gate went down, a real slope. So yeah, it'll work, but it's going to have to be serviced and maintained. I can tell you that.
So that's from a mechanical standpoint. Do you have any opinion about making the gate safer standpoint as far as having to do it on a slope? My opinion is we have to do it. All right.
Oh yeah.
So if you want to say that all gates have to be flat, then unfortunately you just don't live in the real world. And that's where those physical stops come in. Granted, they don't prevent the drive from if a chain breaks or whatever. So my professional opinion, you have to do it. You have to also understand that what Robert was talking about, the maintenance and anything else that happens with the gate, you need to address it right away. Because if it's fully open and the slope is down and that chain breaks, it's going into the drive. And not only is that where most of the pedestrian traffic is and vehicle traffic, it's just that's where I would be cautious of. I'm not saying sloping backwards is any better than
no, either way it's slope. It just depends on how bad the slope is. And sometimes, most of your scenarios is going to be splitting the difference between level and slope. If you know what I mean, is like you got to split the hairs a little bit and get it close as you can to where it doesn't have that much drag on it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes there's a slope only in the middle, right? Some of these gates, they try to get you up a curb.
Yeah. Or they slope downward. Like you told me one time, and then I experienced it in Knoxville at these mini stores. They slope them downward, and so when the gate's closed, you can crawl up under the gate.
Yeah, and that's just the way that it is, and a lot of times what you'll find is that the back track is level. It's just when it goes down and slopes. So now you've got your gate that's 12 inches off the ground.
Yeah.
And you're right. Anybody can just sneak under that. I want to know if somebody is doing any kind of design or anything like that. I've seen a couple of designs for manuals, which is obviously the easy part, but I haven't seen a reasonable design for just an automatic gate. But I've seen them in extreme cases like that, where they're 12 inches, where you just can't get over them. So Ray had a little bit more input. He said 24 inches over 20 foot openings. I don't know what the 24 inches over means to you.
Um, it might be saying it's a 24-inch difference from one end to the other. That's a
Oh,
big
okay.
slope.
Yeah. So it's a 24-inch slope at 20 feet. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
think
pretty
that's what
big.
it's saying.
Yeah.
That's a big slope. Yeah, that's going to cause obstruction. Light's going to come on when you
Yeah.
start tinkering with it. I guarantee it.
So these LiftMaster post mount, I'm assuming, Ray, would you say is that the INSL, the industrial slider that just comes in a box? If you could put that in there, which model it was, that would be, yeah, slopes 2 feet down. Okay, so this is Cindy's input.
That's my mom.
Your mom's on here?
That's my mama.
Hi, Mama
Hey,
Evers.
mom.
How are you? All right, now that's it. That's some women in Gates right there.
Yeah, that's the big boss.
Oh yeah, when I get in trouble, that's what I got to answer to.
Yeah, she handles a lot of stuff.
Well, that's good to know because obviously she seems like she knows what's going on by that type of conversation. So,
Yeah.
Ray, we'd like to know what gate operator is. If it's the INSL, I have seen those on 60-foot, 6-foot tall with 3 barb strand on top. Gate operators on a little bit of slope just kick butt. So it's quite possible that's it. One of those Oscos or linear, whatever it is now, would be fine. But yeah, that's what Ray
Yeah,
said.
so that's the new industrial operator.
I think it's the same operator, just with the new. Yeah, you could say it's the new one. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think they've had it out for a few years, but since
Yeah.
the UL changes, a new board and some other new designs, they've made these things so complicated with all these, different power boards and all that stuff. But yeah, so that's what it is. INSL 24. So it's got DC 24 volt DC motor in there.
Yeah.
I think those are brushed motors. Be my opinion, but I haven't heard any complaints about the motors that LiftMaster has been putting in. But me personally, what now? All right, Robert, what gate operator would you put in? Let's say it's a 20-foot wide drive, which means cantilever is going to be at minimum a 30-foot gate, chain link, 3-stranded barb on top, 6-foot tall. What gate operator? And let's just call it just a small slope. Let's not go to the extreme like that. What gate operators would you recommend to your customers?
150 automatic.
AC or DC?
DC.
That's what my go-to would have been as well too. And for you guys that aren't installing the all-automatics, I even like the CSL 24s. I don't know that I would put it on that big of a slope, but looks like Clay had some input on there. I wouldn't necessarily. It says brushless. He says those motors are brushless. So I don't know that I would put the CSL 24 on a slope, and I'm not a big fan of the HDs. As a matter of fact, maybe we'll bring this up in a future podcast. I actually had that I had a HDSL 24 that I was doing some consulting on a slope, and it couldn't handle it. They had to do all kinds of stuff. They had to crank the speed down. They had to put rollers, which actually may have caused part of the issue on the sides to keep it slowed down and all this stuff. So, the INSL 24, it would be a good choice. Automatic SL 150 would be my choice. I love the ACs because I think you can get it up into a 2 horsepower or so, 3 horsepower with a start and a run cap. That are good, but the DCs are just so smooth. I would just spend the extra cash to go with the DC.
Yeah.
What would your second choice if a customer said that they wanted it to be for that size of gate, other than the SL 150?
Well, I used to do the Viking H10s.
Yeah, we were doing the L3s for a long time.
Yeah, the L3
is a smaller one, right?
Well, it ain't much smaller. It's very little difference in it. But the H10, I can see that on there. I can see um like that LiftMaster INSL 24.
Yeah.
I can see that one. No
Yeah,
problem.
or one of those linear industrial ones where
Well,
you.
that to me that depends on also who you're doing it for. You know what I'm saying? What type of customer will they be able to afford that operator versus one of these others that are a little bit cheaper than that one because that's an industrial operator.
Yeah, Rotary Gate Systems has one as well too. If you guys are in
Yeah.
Ray, I'd be curious what city and state you're in. Um, the uh, the environment would be part of it as well too, which is the snow and corrosiveness, those types, and salt on the road. Like Dallas, it gets really cold and we do get snow some, but we don't put salt on the road. Whereas in Cleveland, you might put salt on the road so that it would probably eat through a chain faster. And although you can do a retrofit for the automatics to do a drive rack system, that's how the rotary gate systems come with the drive rack system. And I've worked on a couple of here in Las Vegas, and they're good, great gate operators. Really interesting design. Oh, so Ray put that it's in Boston. So
Boston, we're on the East Coast, man.
I would imagine he gets that same weather just like you get, right? Where it's highly
No, no,
corrosive.
no. Well,
Oh,
yeah, probably the corrosive part, but they're up in the cold, man.
oh yeah. I keep forgetting that
Yeah.
you're like just at almost South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm almost right in at Myrtle Beach, almost not far away.
Did you guys ever go to Carowinds out there?
Yeah, I've been out there a few times. Yeah, we took
Yeah,
the
that's
kids
a
one time.
it's a theme park that's actually in North Carolina and South Carolina. It's a
Yeah.
pretty fun little theme park.
Mhm.
Well, let's get back on track and talk about some of the stuff that we were talking about. But before we do, Brian had a question that he knows the
Yeah.
answer to. I'm sure he says, "Are there any?" Oh, we actually answered that. Are there any gate operators designed to be used on a grade? Now, it's quite possible that there are some that have some specific modifications that you can do to do it on a grade, but I don't know of any gate operator that's designed to be
No.
actually on a grade.
And you got one more guy up here named Clay.
Yeah, he
And
was talking about variable frequency drives.
yeah.
Now, Clay, I could be wrong about this. I need some more information on variable frequency drive, but basically, in essence, a variable frequency drive, which in my line of the gate operator world are not very popular because of a couple of things. Cost is one of them. Not only do you have a motor, but now you have to have a controller for the motor that changes frequency to determine how fast or slow the actual motor goes. And in my opinion, although I have heard efficiency, they're a lot better. You'll see them in conveyor belts and stuff like that. In my opinion, just a regular old DC motor would work. But I didn't know that there was a DC with a variable frequency drive. I was under the impression, and maybe it's to get a little bit more efficiency out of it, but I was under the impression that because DC can operate from 0 to whatever it's rated at voltage wise, that you didn't actually changing a frequency would not be something that you needed to do in order to get efficiency. But what do I know? I'm not an electronics engineer. So have you worked with any variable frequency drives?
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, they're not that popular.
No,
And
they're not popular.
based on Clay, hey Clay, are you in the installation business or are you a manufacturer? He said you're right, cost and complexity increase. But I would imagine for conveyor belt systems and systems where you actually are running maybe 2 or 3 things off of each other. For instance, you're trying to get a box off of this conveyor belt onto this conveyor belt, but it needs to go before another box or after another box. Those variable frequency drives give you high precision, and so does a DC motor with the counter on it. I forgot what they call those things, but that'll get you precision as well too. So Anthony had some input on it as well too. Anything on the grade fights, yeah. So again, but I've had success with the CSL 24. I was going to say that. Anthony, I'm curious, what are your opinion on the LiftMaster HDs? And have you had any experience with those? Because I would be happy with the CSL 24, which are commonly installed on grades. But again, we're not talking about safety. We're talking about practicality. So
yeah,
you do any CSL 24s?
I haven't done none in a while. I service them though, but haven't done one in quite a few years.
Well,
Maybe I need to. I'm gonna be pricing them up though. I'm gonna start looking into it.
I'm sure that you talk to your customers as well as about gate operators and what gate operator to install. And for you guys that don't know, if you need any consulting or help and training on the gate operators on the East Coast or on any coast, actually, I mean, I'm sure you'll go anywhere, but on the East Coast, you're pretty quick to get to. You guys can always call Robert. He just got back from Tennessee doing some training for a fence company out there, and that went pretty successful. You guys can always call him for training. Is it something when you're talking to one of your customers, whether it be the end user or one of the clients that you're doing consulting for, do you have much of the discussion where it is about, well, who do you buy from? Where do you buy from? What do they stock? Do they have this parts in stock? And determining what gate operator they should go with?
It works out like that, and it's different for each market. Like we had a job come up where we had to replace a gate. I got hit by a car, and it was an auto gate. You know, I'm talking about the pivot gates.
Yeah,
and,
that was just recently.
Yeah, so we didn't get the job because we were too high on our pricing. And another guy came in, and he was pretty way lower than what we were, so he got the job. So your market, depending on your market, is what you got to charge, unless you know they're not calling nobody else. So it just depends. If you're gonna go with LiftMaster, if you're gonna go with automatic, if you're gonna go hot with quality gate operators, and are you gonna step them down to a lower residential standard? It just depends on what's going on in your market.
That's one thing that I talk to people about all the time, because I have my favorites. Me and you are both automatic guys. I'm a USAutomatic guy for the actuator arms. Automatic got the Toro 24 for actuator arms. I like the LA 400 better than I do the 500 for actuator arms. But as a backup, I am like solar. Like if it was like, hey, I've got to do solar, it's a farm gate, like USAutomatic would be the first one that I'll go to, because they are solar.
I see a lot of those on the Facebook pages for that, especially the guys out there in Texas. They use them all the time.
Yeah, that's what I like out there too. But I've done CSLs, I've done automatics. I just put in did a consulting for a company here in Las Vegas. They did an SL90 with 2 solar panels wired in series. So it was it all depends on in my opinion, what's popular in that market, what can you get easily, and sometimes those two determine whether it's cost effective for you to do that. Granted, we want to work on what we want to work on, but if you can't get a control board in 2 weeks, you're going to lose the customer, just like you were talking about as far as price goes.
And so now we're living in the big time internet world where you can go online and punch in automatic 150 DC. You could punch in LA. You could punch in lift master gate operators. You could punch in everything, and the customer can look up prices. They can even buy them online. And I've done that a couple months back. I gave a quote to a guy. He called me back 3 weeks later. Hey, I bought this operator. And so I I didn't have to buy the operator, so I charged him my labor and installed the operator for him. So
Will you warranty it?
yeah, yeah,
You will?
why not? Yeah, I mean it's warranty under the manufacturer.
Oh, I don't care about the parts. I'm talking about labor.
Of course, I had to warranty my labor for about me installing it, but I'm not warranty the operator because the factory does.
Yeah, so let's say that a board goes bad, right? And the manufacturer says, "Okay, this is covered under warranty." Are you going to charge labor to replace the board?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, because if a board went bad, if I sold you the gate operator and I installed it and I sold you I repeating myself, I would warranty the labor on that. But if you're buying the
Yeah.
parts, I'm not warrantying the labor, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
warranty the labor for the install either. That's just the way that we do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, and so you got customers that's going to go out there and shop online and then come back at you with a price and all that too. So that's just the name of the game that we all play.
Well,
And some
now it's
markets are different.
now it's just part of the way that things are done.
Yeah.
We've got to work with it. So for me, and service business in Dallas, it's not something that we commonly do, but we have the luxury of having so much business. Texas being one of the larger, if not sometimes
Yeah.
the largest market for gate operators, we could get away with that kind of stuff without having to buy it online. And I have
Yeah.
found the reason why I don't particularly like to do it is, let's say it's a push to open on an LA 500. Well, it doesn't come with the
Mhm.
bracket, right? And an LA 500, in my opinion, the front bracket needs to be sturdier. So now I have to build all of these things, and the customer is just expecting, why wasn't it included? Well,
Well,
you
yeah.
bought the gate operator on your own.
Yeah. 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 And also, um, I had a customer bought the gate online, one of them $1,000 14-foot single gates. And so the operator couldn't handle that gate, but I installed it anyway. Well, he called me back. He probably not even a year later, and ended up having to put a pad mount because it's a 14-foot wrought iron gate, and it was the operator he purchased was like a FAAC residential actuator on, so it just wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And you run into that. And then the guy ended up spending even more money getting the right operator to put there to handle the gate. So that's the name of the game.
Majority of my customers' time is the priority. The more time that they spend with me, or more time that they spend having to deal with the warranty or broken gate, that it's worth it for them to spend the extra
Yeah.
50, 100% for me to put it in, as opposed to them buy the gate operator themselves and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Well, look, man, we've got some training coming up that I'll be involved
Yeah.
with here. With Coyote Denali is going to be our premier instructor. If anybody knows Coyote, he's on the forums on Facebook. He's also a an actual installer. So we're going to use the outside as our classroom, and we're going to get some tips and tricks from myself and him, as well as we are going to be putting in Automatic SL90. It is going to be truly hands-on, so very little class and hands-on. So everybody's going to put in a gate operator. So we're excited to have that happen. That's going to be in California, February 12th through the 25th. It's pretty reasonable price. It's under $700 for 3 days, so it's not that bad. You can go to the FinchUniversity.com here in the next couple of days, and we'll have the link up for you as well. So I think we were skipping around, so some of our stuff we might have missed. But this particular show was going to be about USAutomatic and emergency service ingress devices, as well as what we did out there. I didn't get to say what I did in the field today. This week, I got to wrap up some SL 3000 1 horsepower gate operators. That was, it was a disaster, man. They just hadn't been taken care of. Yeah, the gate operator, maybe I'm blowing it a little bit out of proportion. Gate operators and all that stuff went in fine, set the limits, all that stuff was easy. But the way that the gate was configured, it was all powder coated, so you had to be delicate with it. And we were using some existing parts and all that stuff. And then I wrapped up a couple of SL90s for actually it was all the same client. So that's what I did out in the field. And I don't know about you, Robert, but I'm pretty excited for Fence Tech.
Everything is fine. Gonna sip up on a little bit of wine. Gonna make a doggone time. Woods on fire, oh yeah. Woods on fire, oh yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody's gonna be coming to Fence Tech, you'll have the opportunity to meet with me and Robert, and we will be live from probably the showroom floor as well as all over the place. So pretty excited about that. And we're looking for sponsors. We have a couple of people interested in doing some 1 or 2 video sponsors, but really looking for somebody to sponsor the whole thing, wear your shirts and do your videos for you and all that. Basically be your free marketing department for about 1/10 of what it would cost if you hired a film crew to come do all that stuff. So that we got all that general housekeeping out of the way. That have some mouse issues, but one of the things that I've had to deal with out here in Las Vegas is the emergency ingress systems that they have. Have you ever heard of an AVI system or an AVI loop or AVI loop detector?
Can't say that I have.
Well, you're not missing anything. Basically, it's in-ground inductance lube, just like anything else, but it has a special lube detector that, what I'm guessing, is set to a certain frequency. And we all deal with different frequencies on lube detectors. So it's set to a separate frequency. And then the vehicles, the emergency service vehicles, it has a transponder, assuming at the bottom of the vehicle that when it pulls over, it manipulates the frequency to go, okay, that's our vehicle. I don't think it's in the same manner of what we're used to, which is that although vehicles will manipulate the frequency a little bit because it is manipulating the magnetic field, it's not just is there a disruption or not. It actually has some kind of identification type thing. That may be what it is, AVI.
So let me ask you a question. So you're saying they got a device that goes on the vehicle, emergency vehicle.
Yes, sir.
And when it drives over the loop, on the safety loop, on the outside the gate, it'll open the gate.
That's correct. But it's a separate loop. So it's not safety loop. And if Brian Fredrickson is listening, you could tell us the distance that it's supposed to be. Brian's got a fence business here in Las Vegas, and he's been very integral in all of that stuff that goes on in the gate operator world out here in Las Vegas.
I kind of like that because makes more work.
Yeah. So but the only thing is if you don't have a room and they approve it to install it closer to the gate, you might not have an outside safety loop because that's going to take its place.
So if Well, you can do 2 loops,
2
couldn't
loops.
you?
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I'm saying. If you do 2 loops, that means you have to have 12 feet. So if your drive before you get to the gate is less than 12 feet, or you're going encroaching onto the easement, onto the government's property, or on the multi-use property, such as the sidewalk or the drive or the street, you're limited in space. So yes, that's correct. That's what you do. You do 2 loops. But if it's real
What
close,
about, I'm just thinking out loud, what about if you did 1 loop and then did 1 loop inside that loop? Would that work?
actually, that's a very good question, because that is a design in the real world, but not for that purpose, so to speak. So the in-ground inductance loops, if you look at some of the manuals, you'll see what they have. It's called a power head. So there's one term for it, and it is in essence a loop inside a loop, and that can control the equipment, typically at safety light or at traffic lights, by saying, okay, well, we know that we have a motorcycle here as opposed to a car, or a motorcycle here as opposed to nothing. And if Brian Dixon or anybody that's a loop expert is listening and wants to chime in on that, we sure would appreciate it. But here, this picture that you have here in the screen is an Opticom unit that city of Irving, Texas, required along with their GPS system that's built in, or not necessarily built in, but that's an option for it. And what that does is they actually, or what it's supposed to do, whether it does this or not, I'm not 100% sure. But what it does is when you get an emergency service call in that city, it helps manipulate the lights in front of you using GPS as well as this device. So the GPS picks the best route, and then these Opticom or light receivers actually will do the physical part. Go, okay, well, they're 1,000 feet from this intersection. Let's go ahead and cut the all the other lights to red except for this one to green.
Okay, so how does that communicate?
So it's through light, either visible or infrared. And what it does is it has a pulse in a certain frequency of the light going on and off, and it recognizes that pulse. So if you will, just imagine a strobe light that is turned on and off in a certain increment, and this receiver is actually looking at it. And now if you look at these 2 little cones, there's one coming out of the back and one coming out of the front. That is the receiver for it, and it allows you, those 2 cones allow you to direct what light is actually being seen, because with light, if it's a certain type of light, it goes everywhere. It's not directional. Like sunlight. Sunlight's not directional. So these little cones on top will allow you to go, okay, I want to pick up this street and this street, but I don't want to pick up this street back here. So that's what those little cones are. They're movable. You could just rotate them left and right. This is, I believe, would be considered a double head. So it's got a light receiver on one of those cones and a light receiver on the other cone. And Opticom is one of the manufacturers, and Tomar is another manufacturer, but you have to check with your city in order to determine what you need. So people will probably be, have you ever seen these on street lights?
I don't know if I have or not. I haven't noticed it.
Gotcha. So that's probably where people will be most familiar with it, is on street lights, because obviously you want emergency services to be able to trigger those. If anybody has any questions about that, just put it down in the chat. I'll go into it a little bit further. But this is a light emitter and a light receiver. That's all that it is. It just has a light that turns on and off at a certain configuration, and this receives it and triggers a relay. And in traffic control circumstances, you'll have the ability to turn the red lights on all the other part of the intersection, and you'll be able to turn the green light on this. But this is what I see in Texas for electronic receivers to open up gates for industrial apartment complexes and so on. For the most part in Texas, if it's fire striped behind where the property is being secured, then you're going to have the gates automated, and then you're going to have this type of device. So what are they using in North Carolina?
Well, some places, it depends on like an industrial place, they want a Knox box. And then
So
over
that's
here,
for manual, correct?
yeah,
Okay.
the key switch.
And what do they do
just
electronically?
and it just opens the gate, and it keeps the gate open.
Gotcha.
And when the fire's out, things go back to normal. They just turn the key back. And then the second one, that majority of the towns and like where we live at White Lake, they want SOS's devices like this on the gate. And every gate that you put in at White Lake, you have to have this on here. And then the fire marshal or somebody from the fire department, police department has to come by and test it. And they won't let me put the gate in service unless they come by and test it.
Gotcha.
So,
do you have to apply for a permit or anything to purchase those, or can anybody purchase it?
you can purchase these anytime. You can buy these SOS boxes off the internet, or your supplier, whoever you buy from. You can get these anytime. Now the Knox box key switch that the fire department has the key. So you got to call your fire department, and then you got to go to the Knox box website and fill out the website there. And I think it's like a 2-week process, and then they'll send you the lock or the key switch, and then you got to go out and put the key switch on, and then you got to communicate to the fire department, and then they'll come out and see if the key works.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Some cities, they won't even actually mail it to you. They'll mail it to the fire department before they mail it to you. Now, do you see that in any residential out there, single family residential?
No, this is what they want. They want this for residential where I'm at.
Single family or multifamily or both?
Both.
Oh, okay. So even single family residential. I've had some places that were single family residential that they want just a Knox key twist, and that's it. But that's it. So in North Texas or Texas, you'll see a lot of these. In some cities, they have different stuff. I'm not going to mention the name because it's so crappy, and it's somebody getting their hands in the city government pocket or whatever. So City of Dallas is one of them, and it's just the equipment that they have. It's the service that they have is just bad.
Yeah. Let's answer some of these questions they got up here.
10-4. All right. So let's go to this one. So this is Clay. Clay, your last name, I'm going to say Gann. Are there any places the ABI loop detectors the only option, or can you still use other options like Tomar strobe? Brian, if you're still on here, I'd be curious to see what your opinion is, but or anybody who's actually done gate operators in the state of Nevada, because to the best of my knowledge, that's the only state that has these ABI loops. So from what my understanding is, which is an elementary understanding of the law here in Nevada, is that you only can do ABI loops. So it's typical ABI loop and a Knox key twist lock, and that's pretty much it. So, and you've never heard of these ABI loops?
No, well, they're not where I'm at. They're not going to be here. We're 20 years behind everybody where I live at. So,
gotcha.
No. But
so
that's where you know, if you're installing somewhere, you need to find out the information from the fire marshal what you need there. So
yeah, and that one's can be a tricky process. So do be careful with what you're getting into when you start going down to the fire department and asking questions. This is not about bending or breaking the rules or laws or trying to circumvent something. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to start answering questions that you don't know the answer to. So, for instance, how far a fire hydrant is, or are they fire striping this? You're going to have that fire department, one of those inspectors, start pulling out plans and asking you questions. And if you don't know the answers to them, because you shouldn't know the answers to them, the contractor, property owner, property management should know, you're not going to look very good. And that's going to possibly prompt an inspection. And you don't want to be the guy who gets an inspection out there that's not needed at that time. So not trying to circumvent or anything, but just be cautious, and just like in any other business endeavor where you're talking, answers. Mm-hmm. So let's see. Can you see that one, Robert?
Yeah, here in California, it's an option. We have some installed in some of those companies helping homeless, seeing as there is a lot of emergency vehicles.
It's he was saying Opticom, not option.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I got to get you a 45-inch screen like I got.
I got to get new glasses because now I'm starting to can't see up close when I read stuff. So,
man, I'm telling you, you're going to get real old one day, and you're going to have like 5 of these. No matter where you go, you're going to have your readers on.
Yeah.
One of my friends, Hillary, she showed me these. I was reading a menu at a restaurant, and she goes, here, borrow these. I had my contacts on, and the light was low and all that. Man, I put these on. It's changed my world. So because these are so cheap, I got like 15 pairs of them everywhere because I end up breaking them and stuff. But for you guys that are out there and your eyesight's going bad, these will also help you for welding and wiring as well too. Yeah. And if you don't want to look like a nerd, I'd rather have my wiring right and not come back for a warranty than those things.
Nerd is in, man. The glasses are in.
In that case, I'm the number one top dog. So in California, apparently it's all the Opticom. Logan Seaman, we only had installed Knoxbox or SOS sensors in Ohio. Logan, I don't know of any places that will give you like an option, like you do one or another, but you're just probably talking about different cities.
Yeah. That's pretty much the way we are here in North Carolina is Knoxbox and SOS sensors.
Gotcha. Now that's the electronic side things. Are those SOS tested one time, or do they test them annually? This is actually a great question, Clay. I've got some input on that. What do they do, Robert?
Well, let me open this one up.
Do they come out? Do they have like an annual schedule?
Well, you can test it yourself. Well, you know what? Maybe not.
He done faked everybody out.
Yeah. You put one of these signs up. But back in the day, I reckon they used to come with CDs and inside the box. And you can test it yourself with your car radio. You had to go up to it, turn it up real loud. Or another way of doing it is you got Yelp, and then you got the other dip switch where you can test it with your car horn.
Oh, okay.
And you can switch it to where the horn will work, and it'll open the gate, and that lets you know that it's working. And you can switch it back to Yelp.
That's pretty interesting. I'm wondering if anybody out there who uses these SOSs, whether they have ever done that as access control. Like, every once in a while I'll get asked to install an exit loop on the outside of the property. That way the pedestrian traffic. Yeah.
I do that a lot.
Do you?
I have people that says I want the gate open automatically when they pull up. And that's what they want to do.
Isn't it weird? But I get it because they don't want people walking all through their property. But what we've also done is put them on timers. So it's a reverse loop at night, but it's an exit loop during the day. Or it's just completely turned off at night.
Yeah.
So going back to the question that Clay had, I'm not sure that we answered it. He wanted to know if, from what I understand, the authority having jurisdiction, do they have those on an annual test plan that you have to have it tested every year?
Well, that would be in your maintenance schedule.
No, he's talking about like maybe he's not. But does the government require the fire department to come out there and test them every year?
I don't think every year. No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So in the city of Dallas, it really depends on who you piss off or not. But they do have it as a requirement that you have to pay yearly for the permit, and then they come out and test them every year. But really what it is, you just pay yearly for the permit, and they don't test it until somebody complains.
And see, that's where the responsibility lies on the customer to make sure that it works properly.
On the customer, right. You're saying the responsibility is the customer, but they contact us to test it.
They got to contact me to test it and pay me.
Clay, let me know if that answers your question or not. Anthony, I'd be curious about this comment that had something to do with us earlier. I switched out 5 LE500s this year for CSW. So to go from an actuator arm to a pad mount, that's a pretty big step. It sounds like either the gates were undersized or the LA500s didn't meet their performance, or the gate operators were undersized. So this is something I wanted to show a picture of. Do you ever have to do these fire department manual drop boxes?
No, nobody has required us to do that where we live at.
So if you guys haven't put any of these in, these are pretty interesting concept. And the reason why that they actually fall in line with the Knox lock conversation that we were having was because the box itself on the outside, in this particular case, this is a gate picture from the inside. It actually has a Knox padlock on it. This firebox is actually manufactured by USAutomatic, so you can buy these directly from USAutomatic. And what's inside this box, where it says fire department, is an aircraft wire that has a handle on it. And when you pull on that handle, so it's fire department access or emergency services access from the outside, and then it's user serviceable on the inside. You would put your own lock on that. And what happens is you pull that aircraft cable, and it pulls like a little pin up, and then the chain just falls out. It's on a little device. So this is what's called a drop chain. And then I would highly recommend, if anybody's putting these in, weld them to the gate frame and use 1/2-inch rigid conduit. And when you do that, you're going to have to buy separate fittings as well too. So this is not just a easy thing to replace or to install rather. These aren't $200 or $300 things. These get up there pretty expensive. But once you put them in and you maintenance down here in the bullet, and then you maintenance the door, you're pretty good to go. But that's a manual device. What about swingers? Do you guys ever have to put Knox locks on the swinger arms?
Only if the fire marshal requires it. At a maybe like at a apartment complex or something like that.
Gotcha. Well, they do make a pin. Have you seen that 911 pin?
Yeah, I've seen it. I also have done a double gate at an apartment complex, but it was manually. And they sent us a chain. Well, we had to get a chain, but they had padlocks that had the Knox key in it. And I've done those.
That's what goes on here. So in Texas, it's not common to have a Knox lock on manual gates, because the purpose of the Knox lock is so that the emergency services can get in there, and for vehicle gates. And if that's the case, that means it's most likely fire striped behind it because there's no fire hydrant that's close by, and they'll require the gates to be automatic. But I've noticed out here in Nevada that there are tons of manual gates that have Knox locks on them. But out there in Texas, you'll see those padlocks on pedestrian gates. Actually, you'll see them like on a separate door to where you can open up, reach your hand in on the pedestrian door, and open up the pedestrian door. So
yeah,
I think that pretty much covers electronic and manual devices.
Yeah, we got it covered, don't we?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple other things out there. So, man, let's talk about some USAutomatic stuff for about 15 minutes, and then then we'll get out of there. So we were talking about USAutomatic earlier, and you had said that your dad used to install a bunch of Patriots.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, about 20 years ago. Yeah,
so
20 years ago.
These USAutomatic Patriots are one of my favorites. But you guys stopped installing them.
Yeah, I they're all right, but I ain't got nothing against them, but they're just not my favorite. So whenever I got into it, I started putting in what I want to put in.
Well, tell me what you were telling me earlier. One of the things you don't like.
I ain't getting up under. Well, I don't have to get up under it, but I don't like setting the limit switches on them, and they kind of get off every now and again. That was one complaint that I got from them, that the limits would get off a lot.
So those are two valid points. One of the other things I don't like is it's not clear on the bottom which way you're supposed to turn in order to extend or retract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's got them in the cast of the frame. It's got the directions in the cast, but when they put that heavy powder coat over it, you can't see it.
Yeah. I've replaced the boards in them. You know how they got the board in it, and the limit switches on them two screws, and when you screw them, they go up and down like that. Yeah, I've replaced those before, and to me, it's a little bit outdated operator to me.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up, because anybody that's complaining about the limits getting in and out, part of that was on the older design. What they had a soft stop and soft start for a while, and then I think they just made it a soft stop. They no longer had the soft start. Well, where the soft part was, electronically, what it would do is cut the battery voltage in half. So if you've ran the gate operator 15 times as opposed to 50 times, what's happened with the battery voltage, especially if it's on a solar, is the battery voltage has gone down. So now the gate operator doesn't open or close as far, and therefore you're not going to have the same position with your limits. So that is completely valid. But what they've done with the red board is they've now changed it, and it has nothing to do with voltage whatsoever. It has to do with pulse width modulation. So what it does is it says, hey, I've hit the limit. I'm going to run another, let's say 1 second or whatever it is. And it doesn't do it by how much voltage the battery has. It just does it by pulse width modulation. So it'll say run it at high voltage for half a second, and then turn it down to nothing. Or it's not half a second. This would be like milliseconds that it'll do this. But it'll say run it at full 12 volts for 10 milliseconds, off for 10 milliseconds, on for 10 milliseconds. And that's how it actually changes the voltage, which is how a lot of LEDs work. When you're dimming an LED, you're not actually cutting the voltage. What you're doing is you're not lowering the voltage. What you're doing is you're cutting the voltage off and then back on off and back on in a certain number of times, and that's what dims the LED.
But does the battery you have to have battery? The board runs off the battery?
Board runs off the battery, but the pulse width modulation does not matter how well. As with anything, it obviously matters how much volts the battery has. But in operating voltage, it doesn't matter whether that volt's at 12.5 or whether the battery's at 12.4 or 12.5 or 12.8 or 12.9. Has nothing to do with the length of travel or the time that it travels now. So your battery voltage is completely unimportant.
Yeah, so that's the only thing I don't like about some of them operators where the battery has to be on, or they have to have battery to power the board or for it to function.
You mean at a certain voltage?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing is too that I wanted to mention real quickly when you were talking about having to get down and do the limits. So first of all, there's no getting around having to get under there with the limits, and you could see in this. Well, you could turn it upside down, or you could put an LA 400 on it. Don't give me that shit.
No, you could turn it upside down.
You could turn it upside down, but what's happening?
Don't twist it.
Oh yeah, I always twist it. I don't give a shit what the manufacturer says. If I'm extending it or retracting it and I need just a little bit out of it, I'm gonna extend it. But I know the trick to it. So as an average rookie, don't be twisting that tube out my hand. You're gonna get Mike Quattlebaum or Nick Storms and yell at you louder than you ain't even gonna be able to hear it. Here for the next 2 months, they're gonna yell at you so loud. So, but anyways. And they have great tech support, by the way. But I think
they do. Yeah,
there is a specific tech support number. I'm pretty sure they changed it before. You just called the main number, but I think there's a tech support number now too. If Nick Storms or anybody from USAutomatic listens to this, make sure that you put it down in the comments.
No, I like them. I'll tell you what's good about them. They're a good starter gate to if you're getting into business. It seems like every gate installer I know, they started off with the USAutomatic. Well, seems like that's the first ones you go to, and that's where I learned how to put gate operators in was those type of gates.
Having installed a bunch, there are a couple of things that have changed, but I do want to give this. I want to stick with the limits real quick. So you're absolutely right. You can turn the whole device upside down, and then when you're done, turn it back. Right? Is that how you're saying do the limits?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So you can do that. The only issue with that is you're adjusting the limits for half of a turn, more or less, depending upon how you look at it. So you adjust your limits, and then now you're doing what the manufacturer says don't do, which is turn that tube. You're just doing it by the operator itself. So I don't like doing that personally, but here's the trick. So first of all, don't use a screwdriver other than the screwdriver that comes with it. And hopefully they're still sending a screwdriver, because if you break that plastic, you're in bad shape. Couple of tricks. First of all, on some of the newer arms, it's really, 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 really hard to turn. So you want to make sure that you're putting that screwdriver all the way up in there and then turning it. And sometimes it just, if you don't get the alignment right, you're 6 and you're 13 inches, or you're trying to go past that to get more than 90 degrees, you're going to have to turn it quite a bit. But
there's another way.
This is, well, let me tell my secret trick.
Go ahead. Let me.
So first of all, you do have to a certain extent, get up under there to make sure that you got your screwdriver in the right spot. Okay. However, once you do it quite a bit, you'll know that slot. There's a perfect spot to go into the retract or the extend. So the first thing is the retract is closest to the arm. The closest to the arm. So you don't have to worry about, am I in the extend or am I in the retract? The retract is always closer to the arm. And then remember this. If I want more, it's always clockwise. Oh, come on, man. This was supposed to be my
If
big
I
secret.
want more,
It's always clockwise.
always clockwise.
That's right. Okay. So if I want more, it's always clockwise. So if I want more extend, you always go clockwise.
Okay.
If I want more retract, you always go clockwise. Okay. If I want more, it's always clockwise. And if you remember that,
that needs to be their logo.
it needs to be something, man, because that's the only way that I could remember it. If I want more, it's always clockwise. So if you want more extend, clockwise. If you want more retract, granted you're doing it on the other limit shaft, it's clockwise. So if I want more, it's always clockwise. If I want it to extend, meaning push the gate further, all right, I'm going to go clockwise. If I wanted to retract more, meaning in this particular configuration of the picture that we have, if I wanted it to retract more, let's say it's still sticking out in the drive, I'm going to go clockwise. All right. Mm-hmm. And if you guys screw any of that stuff up, I hate to tell you, 5/16 nut driver, and you're going to have to open up the back to see what it looks like. Don't waste your time any other way. I don't know if I just hit the microphone or not, but don't waste your time any other way. So what was the big secret that you had other than wanting to interrupt me?
The biggest secret that I'm looking at this picture is they got it up high. Go clockwise, baby.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, it's really nice to have it like that. But I'm glad that you brought that up as well too, because if you take a look, you have a diagonal member supporting the gate frame as opposed to a horizontal one. And I'm not 100% sure why we did it like that. Because in this particular, obviously it's weight. So triangles are the strongest shapes in architecture, right? Yeah. So obviously we're trying to keep the gate from sagging. But if we used a medium wall and we went horizontal, then we would have the option to go in the middle of the gate. So that's the reason why this is at the top, is because you're going to have to be right on the bottom of this in order to grab that diagonal member. And I don't like doing it like that. I like to put the gate in the fully retracted position. I like to take the arm and twist it 3 times out. All right. Twist it 2 times, 2 full clockwise out. Yeah. And then that's where the position of the gate in the fully retracted position goes on that arm. And then I run my gate all the way extended and put a mark. And then right in the middle of that is actually where I mount my bracket. So
makes sense.
It gives a nice medium to where, and the reason why it doesn't actually do it dead center of the extend is because you have to be perfect on your 6 and your 13. And I have a trick for that. I showed it the other day on Facebook, but using a square, and you could get your 6 and 13 down. But yeah, so anyways, there's a trick for that too, but you can't always be perfect. I think they should make a bracket that helps you install that. But a couple of things going back to the Patriot, you can see this one was a really clean install as well too. I ran all the cables down the hinge post and over just an 1.5 inch PVC pipe over to the control board housing.
Yeah, that looks good. I like that.
Yeah. So I have my photo eye wired through there. I have my actuator arm going through there, and a couple other things that I had electrical going through there. Yeah. And then
that took a little time.
Yeah, it really did, because right there where that 1x1 is, or 2x2, I had to drill a hole through that, and then I had to drill a hole through the hinge post, which is a heavy wall 5/16 hinge post, and then I had to make all those connections in there. So it had electrical, low voltage, and all that good stuff. We had a switch inside the garage too that would open up the gate.
Yeah.
So and then you might notice that I got the actual pull pin, the manual pull pin in the middle of the gate. I have it upside down. That way you're pulling down, you're not pulling up. And not all my customers as tall as I am. So but this had the new red board in there, and the red board has that feature that we were talking about with the pulse width modulation for the soft stop, soft start. But it also will kill the battery at 10 volts or 11 volts or something like that. So you don't have to worry about draining your battery so low that it kills the battery and you can't recharge it.
Yeah.
It'll actually even beep at you and tell you that you got your low board.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that the advantage of the LA 400, 500, and that whole line of gate operators, pad mount, otherwise, sliders and swingers, was my cue. And that's what a lot of my customers wanted, is to tie it into the app that they already have. So
yeah. So yeah, I agree with that, because they make it so much easier with MyQ. I mean, it's just real easy. You just plug it in and then get it programmed, and that's it.
Now, one thing about MyQ is with the gate operators, I'm not sure about the garage door openers, is that you have to install the gateway inside the house. And
all it is it plugs into your router.
Yeah. I know gate companies that refuse to go in people's houses. So you're relying on them to install it, right?
Well, and also you got to think about this. A lot of people have their routers in the garage.
Not in America, they don't.
In North Carolina, I've seen several of them have routers in the garage on the wall. Boom. And I'll just plug it in right there. And hey, it's right, the gate's right there.
Yeah.
I know it's going to communicate.
Well, that's one of those things that we're talking about. Why people buy even certain gate operators is because what the standards are that's locally to where they're at. And I would imagine that that's just one more way for the telecom companies to save money. They put it in the garage, and then the whole house is wireless, and that's it. So now, going back to the USAutomatic Patriot and all the whole line, the HD, the Ranger, all that stuff. What they've done is they've created a proprietary DB9 plug that goes into the control board and uses the Next system. So the Next gate system is being used, that I'm aware of, on Automatic, USAutomatic, and one other company in a proprietary configuration, like with their own branding, Automatic branding, and the USAutomatic branding. Now, the cool thing about that is it works off your Wi-Fi to where you don't have to install any equipment on the inside of the house. You just get the password and the Wi-Fi, install the app, and you're good to go. So a lot of the things that maybe was a benefit for you to go to LA 400 or 500, the USAutomatic's caught up with it. But I believe that the ARM is 10 times more powerful than the 400 or 500. And that's why I like them.
As long as the board holds up. As long as the control board is strong, the ARM is strong.
Oh, you think so?
Oh yeah.
Well,
it don't work if the board ain't pushing the power out.
Well, that's true, but same thing too. The board ain't crap if the ARM ain't no good either. But one thing about that Patriot is that it's all metal gears, whereas the LA500 is plastic. So you get quiet on the LA500, but you get reliability, in my opinion, on the Patriot. Yeah. So, but they both have their place. Because sometimes, like in this configuration right here, this was right next to somebody's bedroom. And they had teenage kids. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, the last thing you want to hear is, so there could be an advantage in some circumstances as long as the reliability is the same. For all the UL325 guys, I got my photo eye on there and I got my damn sign. So calm the F down. So I think we got all of our questions answered. And you were saying that your dad put the Patriots in and you started using some LA 400s, and that's kind of your actuator arm at the lower price point to go to right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Cool. Well, what other tips and tricks you got for us, man? In the gate operator.
Tips and tricks.
Yeah.
Level and square, greasing and tighten.
Now that's one thing that US Automatic Ranger HD got figured out, and the Door King 6006 got figured out, and the FAACs is they put an eyelet in the front of the gate arm, so you don't have to be dead on level, and you can accommodate for an uphill swinging gate. But the LA400 doesn't have that, do they? It's just a solid pin into a solid squeezed thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's no. You got to be level on that, or that
No,
pin.
it can pivot. It pivots a little bit.
Oh, will it?
Yeah, just
All
like
right.
the Door King does.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I'm wrong. But anyways, they got that. I don't think they have it figured out on the Patriot yet, but on the Ranger HD they do.
But
And
we don't recommend that.
Don't recommend what?
Putting your actuator arm on level.
Gotcha. But what if you got an uphill swinging gate?
Well, that's
at some point it's going to be on level.
Well, you better make sure it's working good. That's all. That's one of them things you trial and error, my friend.
Yeah, well, the Ranger HD 6006, the Door King 6006, the Titan arm, and a couple other manufacturers, they got that figured out. They got either the pin or they have an eyelet that'll actually do it.
Yeah.
You and I both do consulting on the side, and I don't know if you've ever read any of the E-Myth series, but this is a book that I'm reading right now. It'll take you less than half a day to read it. If anybody is out there thinking about getting into their own business, read the E-Myth Revisited, and this one specifically for the E-Myth contractor for people that in our industry. So if you guys haven't read it, they make an audio book as well too. And all the evidence that I've seen is audio books are just as good as actually reading it. You retain the same amount of information. So, well, with that, man, Las Vegas ain't got anything else to say. What about North Carolina?
Well, I'm ready to call it quits, man. I got to get up and do some work tomorrow, man.
You're 9:40 right now, aren't you?
Yeah, 9:40.
We might have to start this thing earlier. All right.
Cool.
Hey, man, hit us off with the intro.
Two smooth operators, your hosts, Robert Evers and Michael Brooks. Please stay tuned for a good episode. Peace.
Come on, baby, everything is fine. Gonna sell my ball a little bit of wine. Gonna make some doggone wine. What's on fire? Oh, yeah. What's on fire? Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah, Bubba. We're going to set the woods on fire. Yes. All right, man. Well, thanks for jumping on with me. We'll talk about gate operators every day until the next time we see each other.
Yep, that's right.